Hey there, it's CJ Willie, and I'm cracking a pack. Today is pack number 20 in my science project of cracking a 1990 top Cello box. Check out my preview video for the explanation on how this science project will test the theory to see if I can build a complete set from a Cello box. I've added the link to my 1990 top Cello box preview video in the description below. With all the packs that I crack, I will share my thoughts and memories about some of the players or cards. After I've cracked the pack, I'm going to choose the best card of the pack. That doesn't mean it has to be a rookie, superstar, or a Hall of Famer. It can literally be a goofy photo, something interesting about the player, or maybe some memory I had of the player from back in the day. All right, so we are to pack number 20. We've hit pretty much all the chase cards that I can think of when it comes to rookies. We're getting a lot of doubles, and the last couple of packs had triples. So it's going to be a very tall order to complete the set out of a top Cello box. But here in a few days, I'll have a review video, and we'll see how we did. Okay, gum came out nice and clean on that one. That's one thing that I really liked, is that the gum has not been leaving too many stains. Denny Walling, Cardinals, he came over as utility infielder, outfielder. I didn't like this trade either. Bob Forsch, starting pitcher for a long time with the Cardinals, back 1974 all the way till I want to say 88. He was pretty much the face of the Cardinal franchise when it came to pitching. They sent him to the Astros for Danny Walling. Walling didn't pan out with the Cardinals. Force didn't pan out with the Astros. I think they both spent maybe about a year and a half with their new team and then retired. Juan Gonzalez rookie card. So I believe that's our second Juan Gonzalez rookie card. I like to think that Juan Gonzalez would have been a Hall of Famer if he didn't get mixed up in steroids. He was chugging along with a pretty good career and then got traded to the Tigers, had a couple of really good years, got injured. And I think a lot of his injuries were based upon his steroids. And he made a couple of comebacks, but his last comeback ended one game into the season. If I remember correctly, basically tore a muscle right off of the bone in his hip or hamstring or quad. I can't remember which. And that did it for him. Borderline Hall of Famer guy, especially compared to the steroid numbers. Steroids messed up a lot of great players. Chet Lemon spent a number of years as a starting outfielder with the White Sox and the Tigers. Mark Davis, he was basically an all-star 1 year. And that 1 year, lightning in a bottle, he led the National League in saves. He hadn't done much as a reliever or a closer before and after. And I think it was 89 that he led the league in saves. Yeah, it was 89. He had a phenomenal year. 44 saves. Didn't do much prior and didn't do much after. And it was one of those things like 1 year flash in the pan. Kelly Downs played with the Giants. He was part of their National League West and then eventually National League Championship Giants team that got steamrolled by the A's in the Earthquake series of 89. Andy Van Slyke came up with the Cardinals. Fantastic player. He was part of the Tony Pena trade. Another trade I didn't like. Even though I really liked Tony Pena as a catcher, I didn't want to see him as a Cardinal. And he kind of had like 3 lackluster years with the Cardinals. Van Slyke went on to become an all-star with the Pirates and then Phillies. Storm Davis came with the Orioles. He is a stepbrother, I think, to Glenn Davis, the Astros power hitting first baseman back in the day. Had a pretty good career at the Orioles, then got traded to the A's. Can't remember if he was traded or if he was, yeah, it was a trade. And then with the A's, he became part of their dominant team in the 80, 89, 90 seasons. Herman Gonzalez, I don't remember much about him. Billy Hatcher, I've already talked about memories I've had of him in a previous couple of breaks. The dude could flat out fly. In the Astrodome with the turf, he'd hit the ball on the ground and then run out the base hit. He had a phenomenal playoff series with the Astros in '86 against the Mets, and then they also had a pretty decent playoff series with the Reds in 1990. He was part of their 1990 World Series team, so he went from the Pirates to the Reds. Jeff Ballard, talked about him before. He had a couple of good years with the Orioles as a starting pitcher, but then eventually didn't do much. Terry Steinbach came up as a catcher with the Athletics, spent the majority of his career with the A's. retired, I think, in like 96 or 97. He got caught up in the steroid discussion as well. Obviously, being teammates with Jose Canseco and Mark McGuire will do that to you. Drew Hall. Oh, one of the few photos of Drew Hall where he isn't smiling and showing off braces from nowhere. I mean, if you've seen previous cards or other cards of Drew Hall, when he smiles, there's so much metal in his mouth. You almost think of Jaws from the James Bond series. Rich Thompson, backup outfielder with the Expos. Don't remember much about him. Tim Drummond. This looks like a airbrushed card. I think he came over from the Mets. No, the Pirates. Yeah, it was a late trade in '89, and so they probably didn't have a photo with him with Twins gear. So that's probably an airbrush photo of like a minor league team. Carmelo Castillo spent some time with the Indians and Twins, mainly as backup outfielder. Let's get ourselves a binder from the Topps Company store. Dennis Lamp, he's the guy that perfected the vulture save, or the vulture win, sorry, the vulture win. 1985, he went 11-0 with the Blue Jays. He was mainly a middle innings reliever. I mean, he started a few games early on in his career, but after that, middle innings reliever. And there you go, 1985, 11-0 with the Blue Jays. So he vultured a lot of wins. John Cerruti, started with the Blue Jays, came up, had a little bit of success, eventually got injured. He became a color analyst with the Blue Jays, and then eventually, I think just a few years ago, passed away. Mickey Hatcher, we've talked about him. Instead of talking about what I usually do, check out the number of cards that Mickey Hatcher's on where he has an oversized glove. I think 1991 Upper Deck is one. 1986 Fleer is another one. I think there's an earlier Fleer where he's just got this huge glove. Joe Carter, I believe, is a Hall of Famer. When you look at his statistics, I think the one thing that's holding him back was he didn't have a very high batting average. But if you compare that batting average to some other players in the Hall that hit for a lot of power and drove in runs, Mike Schmidt, some of the other guys, I don't think Joe Carter gets the due he deserves. The problem was he started his career in the mid-'80s and then finished his career in the late 90s. I think he retired in 99, maybe 2000. And he got compared unfairly to a lot of the steroid guys instead of really looking at his career similar to Fred McGriff from mid-'80s to about mid-'90s and what they did. Terry Poole, talked about him, came up as a starting outfielder, didn't hit for much power, was a decent average guy and defensive guy, spent a good 10 years on major league benches being a pinch hitter and a backup outfielder, first baseman. Tom Lasorda, you can't help but think to smile about Tom Lasorda. One of my favorite memories was in the late 70s, maybe early 80s, he went to take the starting pitcher out of the game and ended up getting into like a really aggressive, profane-laden argument with a pitcher on the mound. So it kind of it gives you a different perspective of Tommy Lasorda. He was a really intense guy, but he got a rap of being like a friendly, aw shucks kind of manager. Jeff Reardon, closer with the Expos and Twins, began his career at the Mets. It wasn't until he was with the Expos and Twins that he became a more dominant closer. Had a lot of stats that were similar to like Goose Gossage, Rollie Fingers, Bruce Sutter. He just kind of started his career while those guys were in the middle of his career, and by the time he finished, the saves became a little bit cheaper of a stat. Rob Dibble, 1/3 of the Nasty Boys with the Reds, part of their World Series championships team in 1990. Guy could throw hard, and he had an anger and an attitude to back it up. I really enjoyed listening to him when he was on the Dan Patrick Show way back in the day. Junior Ortiz, we've talked about before, backup catcher with the Pirates. Jeff Ballard, oh, there we go. We got his All-Star card earlier, so it gives you a little bit of a look. He had a really successful year in '89, went 18-9. As you can see, he wasn't really too much of a strikeout guy. 62 strikeouts against 57 walks, so it had to be like a really finesse lefty. And I think that's eventually what did him in is, better balls in play. Dooms a person that doesn't get a lot of strikeouts and they pitch to contact. Rich Sutcliffe, as a color analyst now with ESPN, I really enjoy his commentary. He spent a lot of productive years with the Dodgers, the Indians, the Cubs, Orioles, Cardinals. He didn't quite get to 200 career wins, but got in the neighborhood of around 150 to 180. Billy Ripken, apparently he's not holding the bat, so he doesn't have the opportunity to have profanity on the knob of his bat. He lived in the shadow of Cal, which I think is really difficult because Cal Ripken's the superstar. And, Billy had some talent, but not on the same level of Cal. Part of the MLB analyst crew, he kind of irritates me at times. Comes off a little cocky. And I don't know that I'm the biggest fan of Billy Ripken. Maybe because he's cocky matches with all the, hubbub around his bat knob on his 89 Flirt card. Tim Laudner, starting catcher with the Twins, didn't hit for high average, but was a decent defensive catcher and had a little bit of pop in his bat. Part of their 87 World Series team. I don't know if he was on their 91 World Series team. I'd have to check that out. Danny Gladden, another player on the 87 World Series winning Twins team. Gladden came up with the Giants, moved over to the Twins. Good defensive outfielder, could get on base, had a decent average. Jose De Leon. My memory of Jose De Leon, I think, was the 1984 season. May have been the 1983 season, one of those two. He won a total of 2 games and lost 19 games. Talk about, infamy. But he was on some very horrible Pirates teams. Last place teams that just didn't have anywhere to go. I mean, the Pirates in the 80s, late 70s and very early 80s were very productive. But then when their superstars retired or got traded, the Pirates were garbage. Okay, final card in the pack, Jim Eisenreich. Talked about him. Had a pretty lengthy career. If you look up his Wikipedia page or even his baseball stats, you'll notice that he came up with the Twins, bounced around for like 4 or 5 years, and then all of a sudden caught on with the Royals and had a pretty productive, 6, 7, 8 years after he caught on with the Royals. I want to say in 87, maybe, 87. He suffered from, I think it was Tourette syndrome, which made it very difficult for him to play. Eventually, he's able to work through that and became a pretty productive Major League player. Okay, so favorite card, or what I think is the best card out of the pack. I don't know. This is going to be kind of a hard one. I think I'm going to go with... Let's get back here. I'm going to go with Joe Carter. I think Joe Carter just does not get a lot of respect. He was a feared hitter and spent a good number of years from 1984 to, I want to say 1999, maybe even 2000. Good 14, 15 years. Could have been a little bit more as a power hitting outfielder. He got a ton of RBIs. He was part of World Series championship teams, I think both years with the Blue Jays in 92 and 93. He may have got another championship somewhere around there. Joe Carter, to me, really is a Hall of Famer. If Jim Rice is in the Hall of Fame, I think Joe Carter's in the Hall of Fame. I think he rates very similar to some of the other outfielders that are waiting to get in. Dale Murphy, Dave Parker, Dwight Evans. These are guys that were productive outfielders both offensively. I mean, defensively, maybe not so much with Joe Carter, but he was a guy that I think pitchers definitely feared to face. Okay, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did like it, please subscribe and share. Take some time in the comment section to tell me what was your favorite card or best card out of the pack. Until next time when I crack pack number 21 for my 1990 Top Cello box, remember, this is for science.